So today we have with us Dr. Rajendra Srivastav, Dean and Novartis Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Strategy at Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. So thank you so much for joining us today at IILM Lodi Road for the panel discussion on the theme Creating Value Through Research and Why Businesses Today Need Doctoral Thinking. So sir, let's take a moment and focus on the word why. And this takes me back to one of your writings where you had shared a framework on what we do, how we do, and why we do as a powerful lens of reflection and action. So, sir, taking cue from there, I would like to ask you that how do you think today the business schools, the educators, and the businesses can come together and use this framework in order to make the students future ready?
I've been very, very lucky to have all kinds of mentors and all kinds of opportunities along the way. But in many ways, the opportunities come because of the desire to be curious and to want to answer the question why. And I think that if there's one word I can teach to my PhD students, is to pay attention to why and forget the rest. And discovered it in two ways. One is I started spending time with companies like 3M, with Hewlett Packard, with Texas Instruments, with IBM. These are all companies in Austin I got to know. And from them, I learned partly what they knew, but the more important thing was I learned what they did not know. The questions they were asking then became the fodder for research that needed to be done. And so I started this course in 87. In 88, I came up with a new version of the course, and that included live cases. So in a class of 30 students, I had about 6 projects, 5 students per project, somebody working for Hewlett Packard, somebody working for 3M. And then I became entrepreneurial. I decided we were going to charge people $25,000 per live case. And what I learned with that is that when people are paying you money, they expect something out of you. It's not like daan de diya. Okay, they want you to do something. And the contract with them was they will come to the beginning of the class to get it started, in the middle to get a sort of half-term report, and then the final report, and they would help me grade. The university provost found out that I was asking outsiders to grade, and that was a no-no. Okay, so I said, okay, you slap my wrist, I won't get them to grade, but I'll get their opinion and I'll incorporate it in my grade. What I learned from these guys was that the students were doing an excellent job in solving problems. And I remember the Hewlett Packard person telling me that my students were doing a better job than me. So what I learned in these interactions, life cases, I do them today also. We're doing, I run a Center for Business Innovation, and we're doing live cases. Who are my live cases? It's companies like Motlix, it's a unicorn that's come out of ISP. Another is LiftSpace, that's another unicorn that's come out of ISP. And what I do is I get these founders to come into the class and talk about what motivated them, what are the challenges that they're facing. So the students are working on issues that are not a Harvard case. Because the reality is that India is not the United States and India is not Europe. And what context becomes very, very important. And the only way to bridge the gap is if we find ways in which academia can work with industry. And I really think that the executive PhD program that is being launched by IILM is the kind of thing that needs to be done. In 2010, I launched a similar program at Singapore Management University. The idea was to bring in people with 15, 20 years of experience. And what they brought into the classroom was insights that many of my academic colleagues did not have. So they understood what were the issues that needed to be addressed, and then we could start focusing on how to resolve them. So that was in terms of live cases. It was in terms of some research actually being funded by the companies. And it was also leading to results that were very publishable. I think when it comes to the executive PhD program, we really need a multidisciplinary perspective, because without that multidisciplinary perspective, you will be solving only pieces of problems.
So in today's competitive landscape, where the organizations at the same time, they're focusing on EBITDA and profits, and you mentioned that it's very important for the organizations to move away from this mindset and focus more towards creating value for the customers in order to ensure long-term sustainability and business growth for themselves. So what is the piece of advice that you would like to share to the business, to the organizations, that how they can create value for the customers, keeping the customer at the center of all their business strategic decisions?
I'll just be very frank. Indian industry is very cheap. Okay, they don't like to invest in research. And if you're not, your example is great, coming up with product innovations. But if you're not going to invest in research, you're not going to come up with innovations. So whether it is product innovations or it is business model innovations, what we need the collaboration between industry and academia. And these can be measured and they should be articulated. What we need to do is we need to work on projects that are going to bring something for industry. And it is in this kind of consciousness that I'm now spending time on trying to figure out what can India do. Why don't we do R&D in India? Because what we do is we look at EBITDA. How do we keep EBITDA up? Is by not spending money on things like R&D, because the government says that salary spent on research scientists is an expense. It is not an investment. And therefore, if I'm a senior manager and my bonus is going to depend on EBITDA, I'm not going to spend money on R&D. The difference is, in India, what is happening is that senior managers get compensated based on profits. If you go to the US, there'll be a manager, they'll have a salary, they'll get a bonus, but the major payoff is on stock options. And we don't have a stock option culture out here. So everybody is trying to get the bonus out of EBITDA rather than the bonus out of growth. So we just need a total change in mindset, and this is where we need broader thinking, not the kind of thinking that is coming out of accounting.
So you've always mentioned in your lectures, in your speeches and in your writings that it's very important that we educators should nurture the passion of learning and empowerment. But in today's time, where AI has literally got into our classrooms and is teaching, evaluating, and also engaging the students with utmost precision, what is the piece of advice that you would like to share with us, faculty members, that how we can add a unique value to our classrooms? We understand that we can't resist AI. So what is that transformational role that we faculty members need to take? Maybe it could be as mentors, facilitators, or as curators. What is that transformation role that we can take to bring in the energy and participation in our classrooms?
So one of these, two of these I'll describe. One is a person called Ajay Kohli, who really, really highly respect. He's the former editor of Journal of Marketing. His job at 3M Company was to talk to senior management. There were 6 divisions of 3M in Austin, Texas. His job was to interview senior managers, and every Tuesday he had to come up with a 2-hour seminar to answer questions that he had picked up. I mean, imagine having an assignment like this, where your job is to discover a problem and then try to come up with at least a position paper on it. And so every Tuesday he had to present a seminar. And he learned so much from that was incredible. Another colleague of mine, Tasu Sherwani, who the University of Texas decided not to give tenure to. So he said, fine, I'm going to become a consultant. And Tasu, by the way, is also Jagdish Shet's, so I mean, yeah, doctor. No, he's worked with Jagdish Shet very. Yeah. So the first year, Tasu was not on the UT faculty. He brought in consulting revenues that were more than the budget of the entire 22-member faculty at the University of Texas. So now I'm mixing up research and money. But I'm really a believer that if you're going to do research that matters, you've got to incentivize faculty. Now, let me kind of run around a little bit as to why we need to shift the axis. In academia, we talk about doing research and bringing it into the classroom. It's the good old Germanic model. I don't believe that works anymore. What we need is we need to get government and industry engaged in this process. And therefore, we need applied research. Okay, this is research that Jagdish would say it's working on problems that matter. This is what I learned from some of my other mentors like Daryl Zoltan. And by doing that, what we run into is an environment where we're actually solving problems. And I really think that the executive PhD program that is being launched by ILM is the kind of thing that needs to be done.